to come out. Double tap.
Oh, they turn the music down.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hello, hi. Are we live?
We're live.
Oh, hi, group.
It's us. So, I am Banke the author. I am a new wife, a new author, a new professor, and a new entrepreneur. And there have been so many amazing people like my sister, Tokeya, who have helped me along every step of this journey. Thank you so much for joining. So as you guys know, we are nearing the 1-year anniversary of the release of my debut novel, Always Want More. And so to celebrate the occasion and to highlight, you good sis,
Okay.
and to highlight all of the amazing people who have helped me with this journey, I am doing a thank you tour. So for 30 days, I'm interviewing 30 people just to thank them first and foremost. Raise the roof. Just to thank them first and foremost, and to also let you guys know who my village is. And so if you need to inquire about any of their services, you can. All right, so I'm going to give a quick little bio, the sister girl version though.
Sister girl version of the
Sister
bio.
girl
I'm
version.
ready. I'm
Okay,
ready.
so Tokeya Graham is an awesome woman, an awesome person, an awesome Rochesterian. So she's from here. She actually started at MCC, went on to U of R for your master's.
Yep, I'm in the Brockport in the meantime.
Okay.
MCC, U of R, MCC Brockport, then
U of R.
Yep.
And you've been a professor here at MCC for, I want to say, 6 years. Is that right?
I don't know, maybe like 7 or 8. I think it's 8.
Okay.
Maybe
So
even 9.
8 years. She's an amazing writer and a tremendous editor. She is one of the most generous people that I have ever met. Like, Tokeya is one of those, if a person doesn't have a coat, she will literally give it to you.
I got clothes over there, business suits actually. If you know somebody can fit size 12 business suits.
Little fanfare. She sees a need and she fills it. Very grassroots, very organic, and a very authentic person. So as educated as she is, as smart as she is, she's one of the smartest people that I know. She's also one of the realest. She can talk to anybody.
Thank you, sis.
It's the truth. And so for the Always Want More journey, I met Tokeya at work, and her reputation just preceded her. And then just seeing her around, I'm like, okay, I need to learn from this woman, because this is only my 3rd semester as a professor. So when I met Tokeya, I was on semester 2, and I knew that in order to get better, you have to be around the best. So I came to her and I said, well, can I sit in on your classroom? And she was like, sure. And so I'm thinking I'm just going to audit the class, be in the back chilling, and no.
Nope.
She definitely put me on blast, has just welcomed me with open arms as a colleague, has introduced me to everybody, has shared her space, her knowledge. She read my novel, and her feedback, her opinion was one of those things that was like really the stamp of validation that I needed. When Tokeya said she liked it, I was like, okay.
I love it. I love it.
We good money. So she has bought, I don't even know how many copies, and given them to people, recommended, like, she's gotten me speaking gigs. She's one of those people who is truly a sister. Like, if you're trying to do something and you're really about this life, you're really about this work, then Tokeya will support you. So I just had to introduce you all to her. And hey, Alexandria, thank you for joining. I got the thank you tour back. So with boom.
My office looks great.
Yes, it does. It always looks. This is how neat it is always. Like, she didn't have to spruce it up for this interview. It's always like this. And so I'm going to pass the mic. Thank you for inviting followers.
Thank you for inviting followers. Let me just say that Banke has been a blessing to me as well. I know this is her thank you tour, and I'm very pleased with the things that she has said about me. They're all true.
Right.
But one of the things
I didn't say she was modest.
I'm so great. No, but one of the things truly, it's been a reciprocal sisterhood. She's encouraged me to do things differently, to think outside of my already thinking outside of the box mentality. Been just so full of energy, encouraging me to get on Periscope, encouraging me to push myself through and do more speaking engagements and open myself up to a different audience. So as much as I've been a blessing to her, she's also been a blessing to me. So this thank you tour is an act of reciprocity, and I'm grateful, to your mother-in-law for introducing us, because we are truly sisters. And I gained a new bestie, her husband, throughout this journey. So that's always good.
That's what she really liked. Everybody liked
story.
her more. Right.
She alright. The trainer, he's somebody, but he don't got a book, so
right. What's he gonna do? Right. He gonna have to wait a couple of years to really be on it.
Right.
As an educator, and you recently had a stat on Facebook where you were really kind of pushing people to push their children to think more critically. What role do you see education playing for Black people?
I think education has always been get out of jail free pass card. And I don't think that it comes without any sort of responsibility to us. I don't think that it's a automatic balm for all of our problems. But I believe that knowledge is truly power. And unfortunately, too many of us think that power can be quantified through the amount of money that we make, the amount of titles that we have, the amount of people that know our names. But truly, freedom begins in your own mind. And so if you take any person who's been in the system of imprisonment, they'll tell you that they never felt imprisoned until their mind was captive. And so when people can read and they can write, they can tell their own stories, they can pass education along to their children, then they've truly circumvented a system that for so long black people have not had access to. And so when you look at poor black folks and look in our communities of color and you see black children who have outdated textbooks and you see black children who don't have the best educational instructors even, you know, we say, oh, well, these children, they're at a disadvantage. Well, the true disadvantage is if they don't come from families who will encourage them to get library cards, who will encourage them to use all the resources at their disposal. You don't have to be physically wealthy or financially wealthy in order to access education. And education does not only start in schools. And so as parents, we have to take more responsibility for the things that our children ingest.
All right. So you broke that down. So I have two questions. So what can parents do, like some concrete, tangible things to help their children so that when they get to us, they're more prepared?
So I think the first thing that parents can do is that they can remove their own fear about dealing with educational systems, because a lot of times we'll see generations of fear passed down to children. So you'll have a parent who did not do well in school, and so they have that mentality, and they tell their children, school is this place where I will always felt isolated, or I didn't feel like I had a place. And so if you try to work on your own fear and shape something differently in the way that you present it to your children, then that's a beginning step. I talk about
I want to go ahead because I want to break this all the way down. So so what are some things that we parents can do if they had those bad experiences of education to push past that fear?
One thing I always suggest is confront it. You got to say to yourself, listen, I know that this is the experience I had, but I don't want to give that to my child. And you constantly confront that. And even when you talk to your children, if they're old enough to understand, you say, this has been my experience with educational systems, but I don't want that for you. The second thing that I think that everybody should do is get a library card. Library cards are free. I don't think that enough people, I had a friend who would always buy video games for her children, but would go and borrow library books. And I didn't understand why she didn't see, and she was an educator, why she didn't understand the value of owning books. But for those people who can't own books, who don't have the available resources to go out and purchase books, the library is the first place that you can really fall in love with books. If your parents don't have books in your house, you can go there for free and spend hours upon hours reading books, checking out books, developing a relationship with words and language. You can also use the internet. And so just making sure that your children have access to the library. If you don't have a car, public transportation, making sure that you have someone who might, carpool and resource. Maybe you braid somebody's hair and they give you a ride to the library. So I would say the first thing would be to confront your own fears and try to make sure that you don't pass those on to your children. Make sure that you take advantage of all the community resources, including library cards, including any sort of book programs that they have at the school. Read to your children.
And let your children read to you.
That's my next thing. And when they become old enough, let them read to you. And let them not just read to you, but also create stories and tell you different stories, be able to restate. So even the youngest child, if you read a book to them and they can't read, they can tell you what happened in the story. That's how you begin to build critical thinking skills. With children as young as 2 years old, have them in the kitchen helping you cook. That's teaching them math. You can do, science experiences, experiments. You always want to make sure that your children know that you are willing to put all of your resources behind them and say that you don't know.
I want to interrupt you for 1 second.
Go ahead.
Just to say that in the community, the library is one of the most vital, one of the most beautiful spaces.
Yes.
I haven't been to any library in any neighborhood that has been raggedy.
That's
Not
right.
one.
That's right.
They're always well kept. They always have the most passionate, the nicest people in the world. I mean, librarians are weird, but they are nice.
We love librarians. That's my next job, a librarian.
And if you have a true interest in literature, they're more than happy to help you. Dan, you said so much. There was another thing that I wanted to pull out. Okay.
That time talking to you, critical thinking?
Critical thinking. Right, so when you allow your kid to respond to what you are reading, when you ask them their opinion, their thought, their feelings, what do they think is going to happen next in the story?
That's right.
But it's not just that you're saying all these things, you did these things.
Always.
How long did you stay home with your children?
Well, initially, when I went back to school, I had a child at 19. I was a teen mom, and so my son was born at my water bag broke in my 20th week, and the doctors told me that they were going to induce my labor and I would just miscarry. My aunt came and raised holy hell, and they decided to send me to another hospital. I was put on bed rest for 8 weeks, and then my water broke. Well, not my water broke. My water broke in my 20th week, but I went into labor. And so I had my son 12 weeks early. I was 19 years old, and the first thing that I did is that when I went to the hospital every day, I would go at night because I didn't have enough money for to pay for parking. And this was back in the day where parking was free after a certain time. But I'd left a note for the social worker and asked her if there was a library where I could take out a book so I would know all the medical terminology that the doctors would use to me about my son. So when they say bradycardia or tachycardia or anything like that, I would know the definition. And I always spoke back to them in their language. So very early on, I learned the tools of advocacy. And so parenting always became natural to me. So I would read to my son at the hospital, and I would do that every single day. And I met someone else. We got together, had more children, got married, all that stuff.
He's awesome.
He is. I kind of like the guy. And so what ended up happening, I worked as a social worker after my MCC degree, and then I stayed home with my children because I had back-to-back babies for about 7 or 8 years, and really wanting to make sure that all of my children knew that my husband and I, but particularly me because I was home with them, was their first teacher, and really wanted to make sure that they used the world as their canvas.
When you got that book of medical terms so that you could speak to the doctors in their language, as you say, how did they respond to you differently once you started using their language?
Well, they always thought that I was older, and they thought that I was coming from work. And that's
because you were going at night.
I was going at night, and then I had clothes on. Like, I didn't have my hair in rollers. I didn't, And so I'm not saying I came in a prom dress or a business suit. I had on, slacks and a blouse. And I always looked them in their eyes. I didn't, shrink. And it was just me. Nobody else was going to the hospital with me. Nobody else was advocating with me. It was just me fighting for this little baby's life. And so I understood in that moment that if he didn't have me to champion for him, if he didn't have me to advocate for him, that he was lost. And that's how I've always approached parenting, that I understand that I'm my children's first advocate along with their father because we co-parent equally. But I always want them to be able to develop their voices. So whenever I had an opportunity to have a conversation with them, not as children but as little people, and ask them their opinion, even at 1 year old, what do you think about this? What do you want to do today? Why do you want to do that? And we don't want to have conversations. They couldn't watch television during the week, and people didn't understand that. These are my kids. Do what you do with your own children. My kids not watching all that idiot box stuff. And we would create spaces. We would make paper. We would journal. We would have Camp Graham every year up until this past summer. Camp Graham is a business. And so just really making sure that they understood that we were part of a circle and that each piece fit together in a particular way, and we were representations of each other. And so I made them responsible. I know you too, but you got to get up in here, do your chores, and you're going to have to, write me a story tonight or tell me a story. You don't just get to lay around in your onesie, soaking up all this good parenting. Everybody contribute,
Lay around in your onesie.
Hey, I know, baby.
I just want to check back in with you guys. Again, I'm Banke the author. I'm a new author, a new wife, a new professor, a new entrepreneur, and this is the Thank You Tour, where I show you the amazing people that I have in my village, and they share their knowledge. So, Tokeya, where can people follow you on Periscope? I just want them to know now.
So you can follow me on Periscope at Soulstainable, SOULSTAINABLE. I'm also on Facebook. I have a Soulstainable Living page, and I also have a website, www.soulstainable, sustainableliving.com, and it's the house for all of my endeavors, whether it's my personal speaking, whether it's my writing engagements, whether it's just my personal philosophy that I adhere to.
That she adheres to, because it's one thing that, like you said, as educators, sometimes we use pretty words and we say all these things, but you have done everything that you're telling people to do.
Always.
How did you know at 19 the importance of carrying yourself in that way, looking the doctors in the eye? Where did that come from?
Well, my grandmother raised me, and she always, told me that, you from somebody, that no matter what your circumstances are. My mother had me at 15. She was not able to parent me and my siblings, but I never felt like a victim. And so I knew, just without, I guess the ancestors just poured into me. And I talk about the ancestors pouring. I knew I came from somebody, and I knew what the things that I would want for myself. I didn't know how to get those things, so I asked questions. I love not knowing stuff. And so when I didn't know, I asked. And when I knew, I did. I did better.
Okay. So you kind of broken it down as the parent being the first educator. So that kind of answers your education philosophy to a certain degree. What is your writing philosophy? For those who want to be authors or be published, What advice do you have to give on that?
I'm going to tell y'all, so many of y'all writing books just to write them. One of the things I really appreciate, I'm sorry, y'all, like Amazon.com and CreateSpace got people writing books every 5 seconds just because they feel like they have something to say. And that's all well and good. I believe in that. One of the things that I would caution is that you don't only read your words. And I think that that's what happens, that we are writing in vacuums, that we haven't read other authors, that we haven't explored, we don't understand critical thinking, that we don't understand the benefit of good editing. And so we're just putting information out there that has not been vetted, hasn't been tested, and we are creating a following of people who are equally ignorant, and that to me is problematic. And so what I would encourage people to do is to read more and then try to write in different styles. You know, I teach creative writing as well as literature and composition.
Double tap the screen for hearts, guys.
Double tap the screen. Boop. Can I tap the screen for hearts for me? But I think that one of the things that happens is that we only want to write. We don't want to read. But writing goes in tandem with reading. And I would just encourage people to read more and to pay homage to people who've come before you. Read the so-called greats. Don't read just the traditional literary canon of dead white authors. You want to make sure that you're reading authors that look like you, that are coming from the places that you come from. Definitely support local authors, but you also challenge them, because local authors aren't giving their books away. You're purchasing them. And so I would encourage every person who's writing, who wants to be an author, to do your work, to be diligent, to make sure that you are reading other people, to make sure that you're getting your work proofread and edited, to make sure that you have a message that needs to be shared. Just because you thought it doesn't mean that somebody else needs to know it. And you have to be honest about that.
And you have to have honest people around you. Yeah. And then sometimes it's so much easier and more enjoyable to read a book with somebody else. And that's one of the things that I really like about our relationship, is that once I got into Kia's class, I realized, okay, I've been out of school for so long. I've let my scholarly pursuits fall, and I needed to pick that back up. And so we read, one of the things I was kind of intimidated to read was Beloved, but yet we read it and discussed it, and I feel like as a reader and as a woman, like I gained a whole new depth that I know is going to serve me in my writing. So,
and she suggested books to me as well. I love to read, and so that's the conversation. Banke is one of the only friends that I have that has some of the same interests that I have in the ways that I deal with words. And so you really want to have somebody who is willing to engage in discussion and willing to elevate the conversation with their own input. And that's why I liked her novel, Always Want More, because what it did, it took something that's a genre of urban, what they call urban fiction. I have a problem with that, because it sort of categorizes and limits who would necessarily read our audiences. This is classical fiction in the same vein as If Beale Street Could Talk by James Baldwin, or Down East Mean Street, Perry Thomas. But what I'm saying, it is. And so this idea of us being able to reading her work and really getting to know her through her work and having conversations with her about her writing and her hopes for our community is something that's benefited me greatly.
Thank you, sis. As an editor, because I know most people see you, most people hear you, and then
y'all gonna give me business?
Right, you already know what, but you're selective because your time is very. I mean, you can speak on that if you want to, but what makes you interested in a project as an editor?
For me, as an editor, what I want to do with an author first is make sure they have long-term vision. Sometimes we feel that everything that we write is the best thing ever. And I tell people, I don't love your stuff. And I don't mean that to be disrespectful or dismissive. I don't love my stuff. And I think that one of the things that we want to be is complacent. We want to sit and say, oh, it's done. And sometimes it may be. But my personal philosophy is that I'm not a human being. I'm a human becoming. I'm always in the process of evolution. And if I'm trying to be greater, then I have to look at this thing as a greater scope. I know you want to tell this story about your grandmother. I know that you want to tell the story about your family's lives, but this is not just for your own consumption, because once you choose to publish it, you're sharing it to the world, with the world. So how do you want to get your message across in a way that makes most sense, and also that is clear and concise? And so for me, working with an author, I want to have a conversation first about you. What's your motivation? If you're only about the money, don't come see me. You know, I don't want to just work with you, because my name and who I am as a person, my policies and my practices line up. You know, but I'm here for you getting that money. Now, don't get me wrong. But I want to see where are you trying to go with your work. If you made a commitment to have a character who's doing these things, I'm going to hold you accountable for those characters. I want you to listen. I have degrees in English, and I know what I'm doing. I do teach creative writing. I'm published as well. but I want you to take advantage of my skill sets, pay me for my skill sets, but also understand that I'm reading this completely separate of my feelings, my love, my attachment to you. And so I want the author. If the author is not willing to be able to be critiqued and hear some feedback that doesn't stroke their ego, then I can't work with that person, because there's going to be too much of a resistance all along the way
to the real growth and the real process.
That's right.
The work.
The work, it makes you better. And so I'm going to ask you a question. It might involve you cutting out 40 pages, but I promise you the product that you will end up with will be so much greater, because I'm going to stretch you beyond your own ideas of who you can be as a writer.
Well, speaking of that stretching, Tokeya was so kind to edit the last draft of Always Want More, and so there's going to be a new edition, and I've been very candid about this because and that's why you should follow me, because I share my journey. It's not bullshit. Like when
and
I'm
every
really
Monday
working
she's
on
doing an education Periscope, right?
Yep,
Monday?
Every
Okay.
Monday. So I know that for my book to reach the audience that I want it to, for it to have this standard of excellence, I can't have any typos. Who cares if 50 Shades of Grey has 1,000 typos? That's what they do. But for me and what I believe in and how I want my name to be associated, it has to be excellence. And so I'm going to end up paying, I don't even know how much, for the for a new edition, because
That'll have questions in it as well,
right?
For
Yes,
book clubs.
They'll have discussion questions and all of my social media information, so that you can follow me and see the person that brought you this story.
That's right. See
the whole person.
That's right.
You know, and so I'm very grateful that you have that standard, and that you push everybody around you to produce the best that they can, and you don't mince words, and I want to say thank you for that.
And I just want to, when Banke and I had a conversation, when I read her book, I still have the notes in my bag, and it talks about what are your characters' motivations. I want to talk very specifically to who Tracy. I want to know her background story. Sometimes we see characters and we just see them on the page, but we don't understand that there's so much that exists beyond that page. And so we had some dynamic conversations about her character's motivation. I'm trying to get her to get that sequel out, y'all. Her series, because I'm sprung. I'm a fan, definitely. And but that was a really good process, because when we got together just to have our conversation, she took notes, and I didn't know her when she wrote the novel, but reading the novel, and I had been on a fast from reading. I was going through so many personal things. My husband had some health challenges, and so just being a caretaker, I was in that mode. And I told her, I said, sis, when I break my book fast, I'm gonna come and I'm gonna read your novel. And that's what I did, and it was a pleasure. And it was my pleasure, because she came and she spoke to I co-advised Black Student Union. She spoke to our students, and they were overwhelmed with gratitude, just being so kind and gracious and talking to each one. So that goes into being an educator, that goes into being a community member, that goes into being just a good person. So our students are able to meet with her, and then they say, you know what, you got some good taste, Professor Graham, because you hang up with Professor Wupatu McCullough, like, you all right. And it's like, okay, I get another little check on my cool card.
Crazy.
Rolling with my younger sis over here.
Man, listen, and my class is a pre-English course, so if you don't have the skills needed to take Tokeya's class, you have to take my class first. Right. And I'm loving that we're kind of creating a funnel, because the best student, and only the best ones, I'm like, make sure you get in Professor Graham's class.
And it's good for me, because that when they come in there, and it makes them feel connected, particularly the students who look like us. We have a lot of Black female older students who come to class, and they don't feel validated in this space. And then when they walk into this space and they have my sis first, and they see all her teeth and she's smiling and she got them doing peer review journal, right, all the time. So we have people here who say, oh, I met Professor McCullough, and she took the anxiety out of me going into this college space. And not only that, she's going to usher me to another professor who got me. I'm like, we got you.
We got you.
And so we're creating a particular sisterhood that the students have not had before, going from one discipline as far as a feeder course into another course. And they've had it in other, white folks working with white folks all the time, but you don't see it with Black folks in higher education. So it's a beautiful space to be in.
Let me speak on that. Because I've said this before, when you are somebody who is entering a space, or you're entering a new field, you have to be very humble. You don't be afraid to say what you don't know. And Jalen spoke on this on Saturday as far as not being intimidated by people. People will embrace you when you go to them with humility. Like, I didn't come to Tokeya, I'm an author. There was no competition, because I can see her, and I know that she knows things that I don't know. And she's gonna get mad when I say this, but I know she's at a higher level. I don't have any problem admitting that. I don't have any problem, because how else are you gonna get better? If you're the smartest person in the room, then you need to get in another room. And then how else are you going to really get to that seat of knowledge unless you come and say, can I learn from you? So for those of you who are striving for more, who are pushing and trying to do better, there are people around you who can help you. But nobody is going to trust you if you come with your hand out. If you come with a cockiness, come with honesty and humility, and I'm telling you, so many doors will open up for you.
And on the flip side of that, if you know that you have something to offer, some of y'all can help people and be mentors, and y'all just jerks. You know what I'm saying? Like, you got to where you want to be. Maybe you had it hard, or you didn't have enough mentors, so you're not going to help anybody else. You're not going to have any mentees. And so what I'm saying to you all, those of you who are in positions where you feel like you already have arrived, or arrived, for those of you who are so fancy, help somebody. You shouldn't be looking down on other folks. This relationship would not have worked if either one of us had felt like they were too good to deal with the other. If either one of us just felt like they were too good to be in a position to receive, because like I said, it is an exercise of reciprocity. And so there are things that I can't offer my sister, and I'm willing. I told her from the beginning, sis, my resources are all yours. And I don't just tell her that. I show her that. I want to be where she is. I want to support her novel. I want to make sure that people know about her. I want to make sure that she's getting to a wider audience, and anything I can do to usher that in for her, I'm doing that. And so I want to challenge folks who are in positions of authority, those of us who have reached a particular level. I want to challenge you to grab somebody and pull them along with you, because you'll get blessed by it. And you don't need any fanfare. You don't need any fame. You just need to do it because it needs being done.
Right. And it all comes back.
It all comes back in the wash. Get that good karma working, and
all right.
All
right, so thank you guys so much for tuning in. For those of you who are watching the replay, you can double tap the screen to give hearts as well. Can you please give everybody your information one more time?
My name is Tokeya. It's T as in Tom, Okeya, last name Graham. I am an assistant professor of English at Monroe Community College, located at Damon City campus.
Whoop, whoop.
Whoop, whoop. I am on soulstainableliving.com. It's SOULSTAINABLE living. Soulstainable living is a process that takes your positive energy and recycles it for the benefit of the universe. Keep recycling. It's a sustainable process. So you can look me up on Facebook. I have a Soulstainable Living page. I also have a Periscope page where you can follow me at Soulstainable. Thank my sister here. Big up her stuff, Banke the author. Follow her on all venues, and we are blessed to be in your space.
Thank you guys so much.
We love you. We love you.
God bless.
God bless. Sis, we should